Hello, I'm Dr. Stanley Sandler, and this is Stan the History Man. Today I'd like to talk about the differences between communism and Nazism, or maybe fascism. But anyway, a lot of people think, well, they're kind of alike. They're ruled by dictators, and people are told what to do, and if they don't, they're shot or put in concentration camps. But there's a real difference. We'll take the Nazis first. The Nazis, one of the things I have to say about them was they really fulfilled their promises. They said they get Germany out of the Depression, they put people to war, and then they'd wipe out the shame of Versailles, the diktat of the Treaty of Versailles of 1919. Well, not too long after they got it, about 1934, the production or employment picked up markedly. Germans were put to work, often put to work making armaments, but also building the Autobahn, that sort of thing. And so Hitler, the Nazis were delivering on that score. Of course, the problem with the Autobahn, no one saw it at the time, is that they go both ways. Because when the Allies invaded Germany, they just rolled along the Autobahn. Now the Germans tried to blow them up, but you can't blow up a whole Autobahn, not like a railroad line or anything. So anyway, that might have been a mixed blessing for the Germans. But anyway, they went back to work, and 1935, the Nazis, Hitler said, we have an air force, which was a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. They weren't supposed to have an air force. Then in 1935, they rolled into the Rhineland, which is supposed to be German, but not to have any troops in there. They moved the troops in, and nobody did anything. So now you see the Germans saying, aha, you see he's sticking his finger in the eye of the Allies, and they're not doing anything. And then in 1938, Hitler annexed Austria. Austria and Germany were supposed to be kept separate by the Treaty of Versailles. He rolled into it. Local boy makes good. Of course, Hitler was an Austrian. And again, the Allies did nothing. And finally, he really went for the big enchilada. He took the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia, which is not a part of the Treaty of Versailles, although the country of Czechoslovakia itself was. And again, the infamous Munich Agreement, they did nothing. So the Germans, Hitler's popular, okay? Now, I think most Germans that generation would admit that. They'd all say, well, I was anti-Nazi, but a lot of other people were pro. And of course, Hitler was elected legally. He didn't win a majority, but he won a plurality, whereas the communists just shot their way into power. So looking at the communists now, so what I say, the Nazis is, for Germans who are Aryans and not Jewish or, other minority groups, they deliver the goods. Now, on the other hand, the communists, when they took over, first of all, they shot their way into power. There was an armed coup, which did not overthrow the Tsar. A lot of people, the communists say, oh, well, we overthrew the Tsar, a tyrant. No, it was the legally elected government of Kerensky. That was overthrown. And then they promised peace, land, and bread. Well, they had several years of civil war, in which maybe 1 million died. Okay, so much for peace. And then they crazy policies of collectivization produced mass starvation in the Ukraine. Stalin himself, when he's talking to Churchill, went like this: like 10 million people died, roughly speaking, in the Ukraine famine of 1932, 33, 34. And of course, that means that the grain was not produced. As a matter of fact, it's a fascinating story that the communists had to import grain. I mean, it's like importing oil to Saudi Arabia to import grain to the Ukraine. They had to buy wheat from the United States, from Canada, from Australia, these scurvy capitalistic countries. And they said, well, the weather went bad. I think the weather went bad in 1917. It never got better. So anyway, then of course, without the grain, there was no bread either. So on these three major points, obviously including life itself, the communists failed completely. And when the whole rotten system collapsed in 1989, they figure, in fact, a French group had a book it came out about 10 years ago, called The Black Book of Communism. They said about 100 million people died under communism. Of course, that includes China, in which millions died in this crazy, again, program of collectivization. Farmers are selfish. They want to keep their land, so we'll put them all together in like factories in the countryside, and that'll really produce things. All it did was cause people to starve. So what I'm saying was communism was a terrible disappointment, was a deadly theory. I've heard of very few communists who are farmers. Mostly they're all intellectuals, college professors and lawyers and that type of thing. So, and they put them to running a country. But at any rate, those are the two great tyrannies of the 20th century, the awful 20th century. We can thank God that both of them are dead, more or less. I'm Stan Sandler, and that's Stan the History Man.